right, welcome to the Gemini podcast. I'm your host, Josh DeFreitas, and we have an amazing guest here today. He's a close friend of mine. Actually, he's a close friend of my dad and then became a close friend of mine. I love this guy a lot. His name is Pancho de Caires, also known as Pancho. Is here with me today. Pancho, how are you going today, my brother?
Hey, my buddy Josh, I'm fine. Looking forward to this conversation. We've had so many conversations off air, so this one is going to probably be quite interesting.
Yeah. So Pancho brings a lot of knowledge to the table. Pancho is a cannabis expert. Us in the surf group call him Captain Cannabis. Pancho is also the leader of the Green Party. Pancho is a horticulturist. Did I say that correct?
I am.
Pancho has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anything trivia. He listens to a lot of news. He knows a bit about UFOs. We're still not clear whether they come from outer space or they're here locally. But yeah, Pancho is into a lot of different things, and I think this is going to be an amazing session here today. So yeah, today we're going to touch on the cannabis industry and what he has done, and he's really done an excellent job on bringing a lot of awareness to people and to the Caribbean and especially Saint Lucia. He's also been activist in the quest to legalize cannabis as a whole. So, Pancho, give us a little bit of insight on where that started and the beginning of that journey.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a horticulturalist and I actually grew up in Trinidad. I'm a born Grenadian, but I grew up in Trinidad from the age of 3. And I guess my granny and my mom were always into gardening. So when I had a choice. I did horticulture. I came back, worked in Trinidad for two or 3 years, and then I got a job opportunity in Saint Lucia, and I was hired as a manager in charge of agricultural diversification because back then the banana was green gold in 1987. It transformed many lives of poor people who were some of them illiterate, but they were hardworking people, and bananas became the green gold, and it really lifted the St. Lucia society and started the St. Lucian boom. And but unfortunately, on the horizon, there were dark clouds because the World Trade Organization rules came into effect, which took away our preferential status in the banana market, and as a result, Eastern Caribbean bananas or Caribbean bananas would have to compete against huge American multinational corporations in Central and South America. And we could never compete because that is industrialized farming, and our farmers had, 5-acre plots and 2-acre plots and would make a living and feed their families and send their kids to school with that. And as a result, the banana industry was, the Prime Minister at the time, Sir John Compton, saw these storm clouds and decided we have to get into another crop. We can't just be monocropping bananas because the market is going to crash and, we're going to be left with nothing. So I was hired as a manager involved in agricultural diversification. We did do a pineapple project and did send a few concessions of pineapples to the UK, but replacing bananas is a very hard thing. Once a banana field is bearing, you can pick bananas from it every week, so you can get a check every week. It's not so for basically any other crop. You have to wait a certain time for the crop to grow to fruit, and then you sell the crop. So you may have 3 months of no income if you're just monocropping. While bananas, some banana fields haven't been replanted in 18 years. And with good husbandry, you can have a banana field producing for 18 years every week. So fortunately for us, when the banana industry was going down, the tourism industry was coming up. So a lot of people in the banana industry transposed into the tourism industry. So it wasn't that much of a hard blow. But the banana industry never really came back. And back in that time, I think it was 1996, my cousin came back from England and he had a hemp wallet. And he said, hey, this is made from cannabis, you know. And I knew that hemp was rope. Um, I knew it was made from some sort of fiber. I think I did realize that it was made from hemp, but you know, I wasn't making the association with the ganja, the whole illegality of the plant. So Randall and myself did some research, whatever little research we could get, and back then in 1996, 97, there was very, very little information on cannabis because it has been illegal and demonized for so long. No research was actually done on it. So it was hard. Took us about a year and a half to come up with a proposal that we requested permission from the government to conduct research trials in industrial hemp, not ganja. Ganja is the flower of the cannabis plant. We were focused on the seeds or the stem, either to make like fabric or to make oil for your cold press the seeds and you get an oil and the oil is ingestible, high in amino uh, um, amino acids and things that are healthy for the body, omega-3 oils within the hemp oil. So also at that time there was some negative propaganda around the coconut industry, and they were saying that coconut oil will give you cholesterol and kill you. So apart from the US destroying our banana industry, making us adhere to world trade rules, and so we are a little team competing against the biggest teams in the world, obviously we would lose. And then in negative propaganda for the coconut industry. So we suggested to the government, let's turn our coconut oil factory into body care, and we'll use cannabis oil as the special ingredient and sell high-end products, soap, shampoos, oils, conditioners, creams, because we have all the raw materials down there. But just the mere um, word cannabis back then would just freak people out. Like, oh my God, what are you talking about? So we continue this night, make a long story short, for the last, I would say, 20 years. I've been an activist, and the more studies that I did, the more that I realized that not only why were they keeping this plant illegal? You know what was why? And it's a whole conspiracy against the plant. And so I realized it was something wrong, and I'm somebody, I fight for rights, and I continue to fight, because to lock somebody up and to brutalize people because they have flowers in their pocket or in their possession of a plant, a victimless crime, a non-violent crime. Who is the criminal? I mean, there. And what did the criminal do? Why am I? Because I'm a ganja smoker too. I've been smoking for almost 50 years. I'm not a criminal. I'm not a thief. I'm not a murderer. I haven't done anybody anything. But yet, if I was caught with flowers in my pocket, cannabis flowers, which is called ganja, all of a sudden I become the greatest criminal to be put in jail. So I started fighting for on human rights level, apart from an agricultural level. I started fighting for the human rights aspect of it, because you hear peaceful Rastafarians, their families being broken up because the major breadwinner is in jail, and he leaves his empress and 3 children out there with nobody to take care of them. It was destroying families, destroying lives, and I just felt it was the right thing to do. And I guess I've been proven right, because laws are changing all over the world, and they reforming cannabis laws and not making it as draconian as they used to. So we're here in this space now, and finally we have an opportunity to create a cannabis industry that could probably provide a lot of jobs, deal with food security, deal with crime, and so let's see how it all turns out, because we're on the cusp of our final bill, and this year we'd be fully legalized and we'd be able to get licensed to do all kinds of things in the cannabis space. So we're here now, and let's hope good things happen for the country.
Nice. That's an amazing story. You know, it's great that you would have kept on pushing on, because a lot of people would give up and say, well, let's just leave that alone. But I know you're a fighter, especially for rights. When something is right and wrong is wrong, so you always fight for that. And I know that from a young age, growing up around you. Um, if there's something that you can give to the viewers right now, a piece of advice within the cannabis industry, if you were to speak to them, what could that advice be? It may be around the current situation and where it's heading, and maybe give them some insight as to what they can start thinking about. Is there a new industry coming out? Where are we at with the cannabis, and what can somebody do right now to benefit from it?
Well, because it's been illegal for so long, um, not much scientific research has been done, even up to a day like today. And ironically, it was placed in a schedule, in the most draconian schedule, the most serious schedule, along with heroin and drugs that have no medicinal value. And it's ironic because cannabis was first used by the Chinese in 3,000 years ago, even before Jesus Christ's time. And they used it as a medicine. And then because the cannabis plant was throughout Asia and the Middle East and stuff, as far as Israel up to the Mediterranean, the plant was growing wild in Chinese pharmacopoeia 3,000 years ago. It has been used for medicine, and it's been used for medicine ever since. Also for food, shelter, and clothing, because the fibers could make fabric, and there are so many things that you could have used with the plant. So for the people to schedule it as Schedule A, it was miscategorized in the first place. So what I can advise people is cannabis oil as a topical is really works good for joint pain. Definitely, a lot of people use it. I don't use the cannabis flower. I use what the planters cut off the flower and traditionally just throw away. I collect leaves because all of my patients are not smokers. They are older people who have joint pain and insomnia and arthritis. So they use it for their benefit, not to get high, but they use it for the other really good benefits. So I could tell people to start, if they have some sort of ailment and stuff, start researching cannabis and see if cannabis product may be good for you. That is one of the things that I would encourage people to look at. On the smoking side, I would tell people, I have never encouraged anybody to smoke, but if people are smoking cannabis, I would suggest that they smoke it straight and they don't put any additives in it. We have a big problem in Saint Lucia with COPD, which is once you get it, it just is a downward spiral to death. And we found out that people mixing tobacco with the cannabis is one of the major causes of COPD. I would always encourage moderation. I would always encourage people to look before they light up, because a lot of cannabis smokers have this attitude, I'm a ganja man or whatever. They could light a spliff anywhere, which is, if ganja makes you conscious, be conscious that other people need to breathe clean air as well. And your smoke is messing up somebody else's life, that they could have, they themselves could have COPD and the smoke isn't going good for them. They could have asthma, they could have allergies, or they just don't like this smoke. So I'm asking anybody who uses ganja to be considerate and think about other people, your smoke affecting other people. You don't want people to affect you, so don't affect other people too. So be conscious of that, because that's a big problem too, public smoking. And the whole proper propaganda behind it has maligned the plant. And even though it's become legal, people, they've been brainwashed so much that they still look at me as some dope head, he's a dope head, but it's legal now. But it was illegal, you're outlaw on a dope head. So It's going to take a generation to change the perception of who a cannabis user is. I mean, Bill Gates used cannabis, Richard Branson used cannabis, Barack Obama used cannabis. So to suggest that if you use cannabis, you wouldn't reach to the heights that you can achieve, it's bullcrap, you know. So many musicians, Bob Marley used cannabis, and look at who Bob is. You know, he's our greatest Caribbean hero. You know, and the bio movie that just came out has now spread Rastafari and Rastafari liberty around the world. Um, I use cannabis daily for many things. I'm not encouraging people. It works for me. I'm not going to say it works for you, but you know, weed is my best friend. It's always been there for me in down times. You know, I don't need to use Xanax or any of these sort of pharmaceutical barbiturates and antidepressants. You know, I have one, Jaja gave me that already, so I could use that. So, and in this trying times where we had to go through COVID and you lost money and business and all kinds of things, you just take a little two draws on a herb and everything seems all right. You know, and you could smile even in the worst of times.
Yeah.
Those are a
So
few things I want to impart on the people.
yeah. So what about like our young aspiring entrepreneurs or leaders that are looking at opportunities to invest? What can they do when it comes to the industry right now and where we're at, especially in the Caribbean? We should have been ahead of everybody else here in the Caribbean, especially with Bob Marley and you know just our culture down here. But you know sometimes our leaders are a little bit afraid or even threatened by the bigger country states to hold up on certain things. So now that we're in this space where we can take some opportunities from the whole cannabis industry, give some insight on some things that these young guys can do, or even older people that want to get into the industry can do to really benefit from where we're at.
Well, it's fortunate that we've been agitating for so long. So Saint Lucians know that you know of the drive for legalization, and over the last 24 years, I mean, they have Saint Lucians who weren't even born when we submitted our project proposal in 1990. So for their whole lives, their perception, the young people now don't have the stigma of the propaganda. Um, so actually, there's a young lady in Denver on the East Coast who is starting up an organization called Women in Weed, and I put on to a few people who are actually making products out of weed. They have women who actually making wonderful products out of weed, and so these young people are now forming groups on their own and getting into to the cannabis space. Um, Unfortunately, many people think that when you legalize cannabis, we in the Caribbean will be able to grow it en masse and export our ganja to wherever, North America, Europe, wherever. But no country is exporting cannabis from one country to another. That is still illegal. Within the United States, where it's legal for personal use, I think they have 32 states, but you cannot move cannabis across state lines. It's not federally legal yet. So the dream of us growing our great high grade and sending it away is still a few years away. Germany legalizing for recreational use or personal use is a canary in the coal mine. If that happens and it works out well, and the whole of Europe opens up, um, that could be a great market for the flower. We already have a pretty big local personal use industry. We have 180,000 people in the country, and we say 20% of them probably smoke weed every day. So every day, 20,000 people spend $5, and over 365 days, it turns out to be about $65 million. And when we speak to people and say 20%, they all laugh at me and say, in Saint Lucia, A lot of people say half the people. It's not half, but I'm sure it's more than 20%. So we have a potential local industry, dark industry, black market that's worth between 70 and $90 million a year. And this goes to people who have taken risks either to grow it or to juggle it on the street or wherever. And this goes to pay bills. This goes to pay for school fees and food. So people's livelihoods depend on it. It's $65 million that's being circulated in the economy. That business houses get that money. Um, you know, grocery stores get that money. So this money actually helps in the economy in a great way. And many of the people who are actually in the cannabis industry now are at the bottom tier of society. It's a Malawi, the low class person. But that person now has an opportunity to live a good life, get a good wage, even in this illegal regime. So I'm saying all of this because there are opportunities for young men who are totally disqualified from traditional job markets because they never went to school, they're bad boys, you know, but they like smoking weed. But so now you could actually come and grow it. And we find that a lot of young men, a lot of our young fellas are also lazy, but the ones who are not lazy want to get into the actual cultivation. And like I said, the women in weed are more, they want to add value and make creams and oils and soaps and stuff like that. So there's a potential for a cottage industry. And then there's also the tourism industry, and the Minister of Tourism um, made us tell a speech the other day, basically laying out how the tourism industry in the ganja space is going to work. So we have cruise ship visitors, and we have visitors that say 7 days, 5 days, 2 weeks. So we have two different markets, for our visitors. And when we calculate it and we use the same 20%, it adds about $10 million a year to our economy, and that's just selling bud. That's not selling, value added. So, we intend to import hemp material and start a fashion industry with hemp clothing, with a West Indian flavor. So you might find that the visitors might want to purchase stuff like that. So there are many ways that young people could get into the industry.
So you say we're not allowed to legally export the bud, but are we allowed? Is exportation and trade of the byproducts legal?
Okay, that's a great question, Josh, because they have standard operating procedures, SOPs, that we need to adhere to come to standards. Talking about standards, the Saint Lucia Bureau of Standards has been working very closely with the government and with us. And there are going to be regulations that are pretty stringent. So the way that you produce these products has to be HACCP, has to be all regulated. And then you have to test your product. We have a mass spectrometer. We have actually two, and people are being trained right now to operate them. So whatever products um, are made have to come up with standards. Once they get standards, they get a barcode, and then you put ingredients. And once that comes up to the standards, labeling standards, we can then export. So my fear for this whole thing of working with the government, the task force, and the steering committee is the over-regulation of the industry and how we're going to enforce these regulations. I have great concerns that I have voiced on many occasions and very strongly with the steering committee and the task force that we already have a cannabis culture. Um, for instance, you're not supposed to retail cannabis where alcohol is being sold, but they only have about probably 100 venues that are doing that right now and have been doing that for decades, because it's in small communities and people have a little shop that sells everything from tuna fish to canned milk to powdered milk to bread to whatever, and they sell beers and stuff like that. They sell spice rum, but they also sell in $5, you know. So we're gonna tell these people, well, you can't do that now after they've been doing it and making money in it for decades. So there is going to be some complications coming up the road, and I see that coming like a freight train, because we are not going to be able to meet many of those standards. A lot of the herb that is being sold is sold on the sidewalk, not in a brick and mortar establishment. And I believe standards are going to require that you can't sell on the sidewalk anymore. So they only have about 200 people who sell on the sidewalk throughout the country. What are you going to do with them? Are you going to help them build a brick and mortar establishment? Are you going to help them buy land? How is that going to work out? So we have big hurdles coming up that we're going to have to, negotiate. And I think it's going to evolve into something good. I think at the beginning there's going to be, like I mentioned, those hurdles that we need to overcome. But I think all in all, because we are a cannabis nation already, as it is, it's going to all level out and everything is going to be fine. A lot of the pushback for years, was, oh my God, what is this guy doing? He's going to bring weed into the country and everybody's going to go mad. And the talk shows were just beating me up. I was getting body slammed all over the place. We've been decriminalized for almost 3 years, and absolutely nothing has changed. Exactly what I was telling everybody. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on the ground. They were all paranoid that this is going to just, oh my God, the mental institutions are going to fill up with a bunch of mad people. Nothing has changed. Total paranoia, and,
Yeah.
and this is what this administrations and authorities do. They use fear to control you, and really, when people like me, myself, imagine if you could Google, everybody could Google this now. How many people die from alcohol every year worldwide? The answer is 3 million people die, not from drunk driving or from violent episodes where you're fighting or you climb up a ladder drunk and you fall and you break your neck. The 3 million people, this is just from alcohol consumption. How many people are killed from cannabis every year? Probably none. Well, no recorded, or if there is, it's because somebody did something stupid and or their body is just not, their metabolism cannot deal with cannabis and something happened. So this is not a trick question for your listeners. Which is the more dangerous substance? A substance that kills 3 million people or a substance that kills 10 people?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that itself. Yet, we use images of sex, prestige, and glamour to encourage people to consume a potentially lethal substance while incarcerating people for flowers in their pocket. Is that the most hypocritical stance anybody can take? It's ridiculous. And they turn a blind eye to alcoholism and spousal abuse and child abuse while under the influence. But we're still promoting it. In the case of tobacco, they stopped advertising tobacco. You don't see tobacco on the shelves. You have to ask the cashier, and I have a box of pack of cigarettes, because it's not on the shelves. Why don't they do that for alcohol? Since it's killing 3 million people and causing all kinds of disease and stuff. So this is the hypocrisy of society, and when people like me pull it out, all of a sudden I'm a pariah for explaining the truth.
Yeah.
But the truth set me free. So I really don't give a crap what all those naysayers were saying.
Yeah. Well, you guys can check out Pancho de Caires. He has a Facebook page. He's also, if you type in his name, you'll get a lot of YouTube videos on him. He's been interviewed many, many times in his life. So I encourage you guys, if you're looking to invest in the industry, if you want to ask a question, reach out to Mr. De Caires. Yeah, even if you're a foreigner who is looking at, yeah, I don't know, investing in the Caribbean market when it comes to the cannabis industry or even agriculture, you can touch base with him. He's like I said, on Facebook and YouTube. Yeah, if you had to leave our guests with a little bit of inspiration, I know you quite a positive thinker most times. You wanna leave everybody with a little bit of advice and give them some encouragement.
Well, it's a matter of perspective. The world is on fire right now. There are wars all over the place. There are extreme weather events happening. There's, migration. There's crime. It's hard to keep a positive or put a positive spin on it. But in the darkest of times, because I've gone through some rough times, being a farmer, and you lose 2 consecutive crops and you have no money in the bank, you have to kind of suck salt and do and just deal with where you are at that time. And you could just let yourself know that there are people in plenty worse situations than yourself. So give thanks for life. And we are blessed, Josh, living in Saint Lucia in the Caribbean. We are so blessed because I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. This is a special place to live. So I find it hard for people who are listening to this and going through really hard times, inspiration. But I would say have faith in your brother man who is as positive and conscious as yourself, and do good. Just always do good, no matter what. Because at the end of the day, it's not what you have, but what you've given that counts. If you are a Christian and it's the phrase, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. St. Peter ain't be concerned with your Lamborghini or your flat in London and your estate and your big bank. You can't say, St. Peter, look what I got, let me in. It's about what you've given. So I encourage people to give more and be more empathetic. And, let's be a tribe for the planet. Let's love our planet. It's the only one home we have. No plastic. Try and get away from that. Just be good.
Nice. Well, thank you, Andre, for coming out here and chatting with us. And yeah, I want to thank our listeners for following up and look forward to the next episode. It's going to be awesome. We have some amazing guests coming on to the Gemini podcast. And we want to thank Mr. De Caires for coming out and speaking about the gem within him. And yeah, don't forget to let that gem within you shine. See you on the next one. Bless.